A very, very good afternoon to all of our viewers. My name is Rapelang Rabana, and I will be hosting you this afternoon for your second installment of Cloud Week. In these times when things are not as they used to be, I actually believe that it creates room for us to question, to deliberate, to reflect, and creates a greater willingness for us to challenge the status quo and do things differently. COVID-19 won't leave us unscathed, but I believe that questioning, reflection, and experimentation is at the heart of growth and transformation. In this digital world, transformation is not an option because the lives of our customers, employees, and stakeholders have been dramatically changed by technology. This morning, for example, as I was leaving home, my savings app gave me a nudge to remind me about my investment goals. I guess it figured out that it was at the end of the month and I might splurge on a big breakfast, or maybe it picked up my location. My fitness watch, integrated with my calendar, popped me a notice to remind me that I may not get enough steps in based on all of the meetings I have scheduled. How everything seems so seamless and coupled with all our behaviors that we exhibit every day. So why am I telling you all of this? I promise it's not because I'm trying to overshare. It's about how every day we interact with data and it's intertwined in everything that we do. And this means that cloud is the foundation of your business, capturing the value of data to create innovative services like this. For those who joined us yesterday for day one of Accenture Cloud Week, you got a lot of insights about enterprise transformation. And today we are building on that and we'll be focusing on cloud, data, and AI. Let me start with this quote from Accenture. Businesses that leverage the full potential of new data will likely gain a competitive edge by building new cloud-based and disruptive business models. We have a packed agenda and we've lined up some cloud experts to speak on this topic, including some deep dives into real-life use cases. But before we go too deep into this conversation, let me take the opportunity to open a session with a quick introductory video. Now it gives me great pleasure to welcome our first guests, Vili Skuman, Managing Director and Technology Lead for Africa, and Hina Patel, Managing Director, Applied Intelligence Africa, both from Accenture to your screens.
Thanks for the intro, Rapelang. My name is Vili Skuman. I lead Accenture's technology business in Africa, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this, our second day of our 2021 Cloud First Week. On behalf of EXCO, I extend my warm welcome to all of you, and thanks for spending the time with us. Today, the focus is about data and AI, and arguably the hottest topic on everyone's lips. Specifically now that digital transformation, cloud migration strategies are becoming a reality in our world. Many of you will agree that cloud is the only place where data and AI will ensure great scalability, great agility, and speed up innovation. And it's my true belief that data and AI is not just going to speed up innovation, but it's going to drive real business value, bottom line business growth. You know, in a study we did prior to COVID-19, we estimated that organizations that have transformed themselves or has embarked on the journey of transforming their data and cloud strategies have already outperformed their peers by a factor of 2. When we fast forward that into COVID-19, we think that gap has increased to a factor of 5. And where are guys spending the effort and channeling their spend to? Security, cloud, data, IoT. And it's very clear that if we look at the differences between those leaders and laggers and the effort being put into the various areas, these are the 4 areas that the leaders are outperforming the laggers in the industry. And because of this, Accenture is prioritizing data and AI as a key pillar to our strategy going forward, a key pillar to our future strategic growth areas in the next 3, 4, maybe 5 years. Another reason why I'm excited about this, specifically from a South African context, is the topic around democratization. There is a lot in the media said around democratizing technology, putting more tech in the hands of average South Africans, driven by these massive digital transformation strategies. But exactly the same is happening with data and AI. Data is being democratized. And these massive new cloud-based data foundations will drive even more democratization of data, putting more data in the hands of people, making it easier to access the data and to drive real value from this data. And these are some of the topics that we're going to delve into and talk about in the next couple of hours as we go through this day. So with that said, I want to hand over to my colleague Hina to say a few words and to kick us off as we go and start this day 2 of our Cloud Week in South Africa.
Thank you, Billy, and for those insightful overview, and also to Rapelang for the introduction. Hello, namaste, Dumelang, for all viewing this event, and we welcome you. My name is Hina Patel. I'm the Managing Director for Applied Intelligence Africa and responsible for furthering AI, Accenture's AI innovation, and responsible also for creating and nurturing and building data and AI talent that can help our clients and add business value. As you know, or you're probably aware, AI is not really a new concept, and artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. And there has been so much progress in creating human-like intelligence, where from the 1700s, where you had the chess playing Mechanical Turk, to IBM's Deep Blue, which at that stage beat the world chess champion Garry Kasparov, and to the whole Google's DeepMind AlphaGo, to driverless cars, to space and beyond. You can name a lot of these kind of advances that has been coming across for the last 250 years, and there's been a progress around that. If you look at some of the techniques, things like the Deep Blue used almost computational brute force, whereas something like DeepMind uses neural networks and reinforcement learning. So these are the kinds of techniques that's happening. And I think commercially applied AI is exponentially growing. As per the report by the Economist Intelligence Unit, it talks about 3 main areas that are driving this kind of exponential growth. The one is the rising data availability, the sophisticated algorithms that are happening, and obviously the ever-increasing processing power. So there seems to be a strategic impetus in data and AI adoption for different outcomes, for different business outcomes. As Willie mentioned also, these are areas where you want to increase your revenues and save, etc. In the South African context, there is a lag. It's not that we are sort of very advanced, but we can certainly learn from international and local successful implementations of AI integrated at scale in companies. And you will see some of those client stories later on in the event. So bringing it back to the Cloud First event, data on cloud is a critical foundation for business reinvention. And really a company's ability to unleash the power of AI, advanced analytics, data, but all at scale. So Accenture's drive is really AI data at scale. And cloud lets you bring more of this data together, including like highly valuable data that you previously was hard to use. You can migrate the data to cloud. You can do modernization of your data foundations, all to help you drive business growth. And then in terms of, one of the things that we've learned in our engagements with clients is that you do need to do your requisite cloud-based economics and commercial viability. Is this, how much is it going to cost you to run AI models, and how long is it going to be, and so all sort of things like that. But the ability for data on cloud and the scaling up and down of that makes it more efficient for you to run your AI models on the cloud, especially if there is a requirement for intense bursts of compute power where you need to do those kind of models. And so this can help you to lead to more accurate insights from that data that you've just brought together on the cloud. So I think with that, I'd just like to say that the discussion that will follow will further demonstrate how the right combination of these powerful elements, data, AI, can help you unlock the 360-degree business value, really to try and enable sort of more insight-driven decision-making, but also to tap into increased revenues, how you can basically serve clients better, how you can scale with ease, but really to future-proof your organization and to be ready for the centuries that follow. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. You are going to be in good hands. Please join us for the following events, which takes you from unleashing the power of data and AI to real client stories and raps from Rapeleng. So with that, thank you very much, Willie, and thank you very much, Rapeleng. Over to you.
Thank you, Vili and Hina. I learned a lot from that session, including that data and the intelligence that we can draw from it through various forms of AI is really quite a hot topic now, especially as everyone is talking about the cloud. There is a clear move to democratize data in this digital transformation wave. To truly gain the value of the cloud, you need to be willing to challenge how you've always done things, to reimagine your customer engagements, your business models, and the new products and services you want to deliver. Data and AI drives that innovation and growth, and it is for this reason that Accenture has prioritized investments into data, analytics, and AI. Actually, AI has been around for quite a long time, more than 250 years. Except now, we're able to capture the commercial value of AI and drive exponential growth that we're seeing in the world around us. In South Africa, AI is increasingly being adopted thanks to the dramatic shift to the cloud. Ultimately, cloud lets you jumpstart your use of AI at scale, so you're able to modernize your business and drive the growth that you seek. Then there's always the issue of costs, which I'm sure our experts will cover. Unleashing the power of data, analytics, and AI is the topic that will be presented by Senthil Ramani, Growth Markets Applied Intelligence Lead from Accenture India, Hina Patel, Managing Director for Applied Intelligence across Africa, and Ntsako Baloyi, Data and AI Lead, Accenture, South Africa.
Thank you very much. My name is Sen, and I'm the Chief AI Officer at Accenture here in the growth markets. And it's wonderful to be here with all of you. I really want to talk about scaling AI because this has become extremely critical now for businesses and organizations. Let me take a step back here. We did a research 2 years back, and we've continued on the research. So I'm going to give you a past and a present on the research. And we spoke to around 1,500 global executives. These were chief digital officers, chief analytics officers, CIOs and CTOs out of many different enterprises. And what we observed was 3 important statistics that you see in the right side here. Number 1 is that 84% of these executives believe that they won't achieve their growth objectives until they scale AI. The number 2 statistic was quite telling, as you can see. 75% struggle to scale AI, across businesses, and they believe they are at a risk of going out of businesses as well by 2025. And 76% acknowledge that they know how to do pilots, but they are unable to scale. So the scale of AI is happening right now. But the question that happens, and that happens in most cases with organizations, is around the business case. And what happens to the linkage to the financial metrics? What we observed was that the linkage to financial metrics is quite direct when you scale AI. The exemplars, as we call them, and these are the leaders, were able to do 3x in terms of financial metrics and benefits in terms of financial metrics. And that is a pre-pandemic, scenario that I'm painting to you. Post-pandemic, when we redid the research, there was a 5x return in terms of the financial metrics on scaling AI. Now let's go a little deeper, right? And let's look at what is happening in the context of the CEOs and as well as the boardrooms. We did a recent, NLP analysis, and we looked at around 81 reports. And these were annual reports that came in, post and pre-pandemic. And you would see the bubbles that in front of you are quite, obvious, because you would see sustainability there. You would see impact to COVID, supply chain being an important one. But data AI has started to take really important real estate as part of this. And some of the commentaries for the CEOs were quite telling. In fact, they use words like commerce AI and conversational AI as part of some of their annual reports. And the fact that they are starting to use commerce, conversational, and social AI right now in the conversations that they are doing with a lot of their shareholders. At the same time, I explained the 3x and the 5x in terms of the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic to you. But bottom line, what I wanted to tell you is that AI has entered the boardroom right now, and it's taking a very key position in the boardroom. There are 5 key ingredients, right, as you see, AI in terms of the exemplars. And I want to start right in the middle here. Number 1, AI has gone beyond the business case because it has become an imperative, as you saw earlier, for organizations to survive and to truly grow. And you can see in the case of the pandemic, how much AI has truly helped. You can look at the data philanthropy that happened during the pandemic has been exceedingly good. Without data, without geospatial information, it is going to be very hard for us to beat this pandemic and this disease, if you will. And that is only going to increase, and people have started to use the increase of e-commerce, direct to customer channels, chatbots, how financial institutions are using different ways to reach out to customers today. And all these did not, wait for a business case. So what I would say is that we've seen a compressed transformation happen in the past 6 months that has not probably happened in the past 6 years in the leverage of AI. Now, the other things that leaders do is they really focus on execution, right? Strategy is great, but they do strategies which are shorter sprints, and they focus on execution, and they use execution to inform their strategies. The number 2 thing that they do is that focus on data. And they don't focus on big and small data. They focus on the right data that is important to enable AI to happen. Data is the fuel for AI, as we all know, and having the right data is more important than having a lot of data. AI is a team sport. It's about how different disciplines of the entire organization and entities come together. Now here I'm talking about the business, technology, HR, legal in this case, coming together in order to create the solutions that are relevant and that can appeal to people and the customers. The last thing is on architecture. Architecture is a constantly moving entity, and it has to be viewed not as an end state architecture because there are so many advances that happen in technologies. Just to give you a context, in the past 3 months, there have been over 81 versions and developments of just NLP, out there globally. And if you look at that, it is quite hard to create an end state. So what most organizations and exemplars do is create a target state architecture, and they keep moving on point by point, sprint by sprint, in order to achieve the target state architecture. I wanted to leave one thought with you, and the thought of what exemplars are truly doing with the data right now. Data is everything. It is truly about transforming unruly data that you have in your organization into a powerful tool that can give you insights about your enterprise, about your customers, and about your supply chain. And with that said, AI at scale is happening right now. AI has entered the boardroom, and it's time for discussing AI at scale right now in the next 15 minutes. With that said, I want to pass it on to Dr. Usako. Over to you, Dr. Usako.
Hello, my name is Nzako Paloi. I am the Data and AI lead within Accenture's technology business. Thank you, Sen, for that wonderful segue into this discussion, roundtable discussion on unleashing the power of data, analytics, and AI. I am joined by Hina Patel, and yet again, I welcome Sen to this discussion. Sen, you in your discussion spoke about how AI is entering the boardroom. It's very important for us as Accenture, but also for our customers to be able to understand how to really unpack that particular discussion and how to really tame that kind of data that you define as unruly. And to start off with this discussion, I'll allow Hina Patel to introduce herself as she tells us how we can be able to use data as the fuel that powers AI. Hina, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nsako, Sen, and Rapalan. So my name is Hina Patel, as you've heard. I'm the Managing Director for Applied Intelligence Africa, with a very close link to global markets. I think the main thing that has come across as a golden thread is data, data, data. So data does fuel AI, but it needs to be also supported with sound and good infrastructure. I think if I can talk a little bit about data, so the data in the 21st century is like the new oil, is the oil in the 18th century, right? So we've heard about how immensely untapped, valuable asset it is. And I think it's important to recognize that the concept behind data as the new oil also is that raw data isn't valuable in and of itself. It needs to be created when, or the value of it is created when it's gathered completely, it's accurate, it's connected to other relevant data, and is done in a timeless manner. I think that's important. As Sen mentioned, at Accenture, we talk about right data. And right data would be fitting your purpose in terms of what it is. And it's not about big or small. For me, it's kind of like the Goldilocks effect. It's like where we talk about, or I talk about it as R to the power of 3. So it must be relevant. It must be reliable in a sense that it's quality, good data. And it must be responsible. So we need to make sure that, we manage the biases, we manage the governance around it. So we talk about right data. I talk about it from a Goldilocks effect perspective and R to the power of 3. So I think that's one important thing. We need to consider data across the entire data value chain, from acquisition to when you're doing analysis and you're doing storage and you're looking at ultimately the strategic use of that data. And you need to consider the kind of different data types. So whether it's completely structured, you have spreadsheets, etc. You have semi-structured data, so like invoices or contracts, or you have structured, unstructured data, completely unstructured. So you have things like voice and images and instant messages and video, etc. So all of that needs to be considered as part of your data value chain. From either from a Harvard Business Review article, but also I think, Sen, you've written an article around the defensive versus offensive strategy and the treatment of data. I think it's important when you're considering your data strategy that you think about your defensive from a control perspective. It focuses on control, compliance, and privacy, whereas the highly competitive kind of stuff is the more offensive, flexible type of strategy that you want to consider. And you need to look at your industry. You need to look at if it's more compliant, is it more financial, health? If it's more agile, is it more around the retail? So I think about this and look at it from a strategy perspective. And I think because I'm looking at South Africa and the local context, we have many lessons that we have learned in terms of this kind of data and the use of it. And there is certainly a lag, but there are also some excellence and pockets of excellence in terms of the treatment of this kind of data. And we see leaders in this, and you'll hear some of the stories in the next segment where we've actually managed to incorporate this kind of thing, and where we have identified these kind of strategic scalers. And one of the things that Accenture talks about is strategic scalers tune out the noise in surrounding data. And that's important because it's important to recognize that there is business critical data, and that these kind of scalers really do adapt and structure and manage their particular data. So with that, I leave you with that kind of segment in terms of what fuels it, and hope that answers a bit of the dimensions that we spoke about earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Hina. Interesting you brought up the issue of data as oil. Because oil in itself is not really that much useful until you get to refine it, you get to transport it, and that entire value chain. And that brings me to think of the next question, really. How important is that human in the AI play or equation? Over to you, Sen. What's that human to machine tango when it comes to AI? Because people are scared of this monster.
Absolutely. And look, first of all, Hina, I loved your insights on data. That was spot on. On the human side, which I would say is the second important vector on AI, typically people use the word last mile adoption. And I can kind of think of it differently, because the last mile in AI needs to become the first mile. And let me double click on that, right? When we talk about human-centric design and customer-centric design, we've seen AI engagements and projects being most successful if you design with the human and for the human right from the beginning. And this should not be an afterthought, because AI is not about creating great machine learning models alone or having the right data alone. It is about an ability for a person to take that, create some intelligence with it, and apply it in decision making. That is what AI truly is. And that is why we are called applied intelligence. We call applied intelligence because we want to be able to apply the intelligence you get out of the insights into the human-centric decision making process. If you don't do that, it's a wonderful science experiment, according to me. So human-centric design is extremely critical.
Indeed, human-centric design is what indeed will speak to the business needs, but also speak to how AI complements the work that humans do. Thank you very much for that insightful piece, Sen. Looking at the next question, I'm just thinking now, Hina, what are some of the technology choices we need to make to be able to power up AI, if you will, eh?
Yeah, thank you, Nsako. So I think it's important. One of the things that came out of an Accenture study is that there's an innovation achievement gap, which is basically the difference between technology innovation, that investment that has happened, and the realized value. And this has got to do a lot with choices that we're making, where the leaders are looking at future systems and saying, okay, so in order to power up AI, in order to to support that, what are the kind of trends we're seeing? And it's more about moving to decoupled data infrastructure and applications that are much more flexible and faster moving IT kind of culture, So it's not necessarily just the technology, it's the kind of whole ecosystem around it. I think according to one of the Accenture studies, 97% of leaders are looking at adopting critical technologies like hybrid data, multi-cloud type of infrastructures, looking at microservices architectures, looking at Kubernetes and container-based, allowing that kind of modularity and decoupling. I think that's one of the things. But for me, platform choices, like what Sen mentioned, this whole rise in machine learning, natural language processing, virtual assistants, automation. There's just so many type of different things that you can do in the AI spectrum. And the choices need to be done in the context of the strategy, but also affordability. What can you afford and how do you actually enable that? And at Accenture, we do have assets that can help with this kind of selection from a tools and technologies perspective. But I'll leave you with that to say that it's kind of customized, but it doesn't have to be monumental changes. It's just that you need to understand what is it that you want to achieve, and then based on those kind of dimensions, say you're going to adopt that kind of architecture, you're going to adopt that kind of infrastructure, and you're going to use what you have to come up with that. But I think that from a skills perspective, it's important that you master, like they say about technology adoption, mastering new technology frontiers at speed and at scale. I think if the organizations can get their head around that, it would be making it very easy, or not easy, but easier to decide on those kind of technology choices.
Oh, absolutely. Even more interesting is that as Accenture, we're very well positioned to be able to assist customers with those kinds of technology choices. And indeed, we have a suite of kind of services that we provide and can assist customers with a lot of these things. But for customers who really want to embark on this journey, because, Sen painted quite an impressive picture of how the rest of the world is moving ahead and how even us as Africa, we need to make sure that we're able to catch up, but get the value that we so much need in our organization. How will the first 90 days look like for organizations that right now say, we really want to get ahead and do this thing? Over to you, Sen, and followed by Hina.
Okay, this is sounding like a T20 cricket match right now, but the 90 days is going to be a few important steps, right? Don't get hung up on strategy. A strategy should evolve over time, and you don't need to wait on execution. Execution informs strategy, like I was saying. So I think that's a very important first point. The second thing is where the use cases have been already applied in that particular industry, whether that's on communications, on retail, insurance, energy utilities, etc. Please go ahead and do it. Like, for example, anything which is customer-centric facing, a lot of the customers now are fine with AI-based solutions, right? And it's important that you start applying it, in the context of that, so that you can free up the human capacity and capability to do, larger and important things. The third thing I would definitely say is AI is a team sport. It's a great enabler of the entire organization coming together. So bringing different disciplines together to solve a particular set of problems, leveraging AI is going to be a fantastic way to start the transformation of your organization as well. I would say probably those three are quite critical to get started immediately.
Hina, your thoughts?
Thanks, Sarko. I agree with Sen, and I think especially the team sport one, where if you are clear also that you have the sponsorship at the C-suite level and that there's alignment, I think that's a very important aspect in terms of having that adoption, because there is buy-in. I think it's important, as we mentioned before, to source the right data, to get that right data, because you're not going to be able to really scale AI if you don't have that. The other one is leveraging on open source potentially, because you don't have to be, like Sen has also mentioned, be held hostage to new technologies. You can actually leverage open source. You can develop a AI scale roadmap to say, okay, these are the kinds of things that you want to achieve over time. And I think it needs to be outcome based. So the use cases that he spoke about, it's you want to achieve something with it, and you're going to be able to measure it. And I think that's something that's important. But leading to that is the expectation management and alignment between your IT and your business needs to happen. Because if you have shared goals and shared objectives, I think it could be a smooth sailing in a sense for in terms of AI adoption. I think also the last thing I want to say is having access to the domain experts, the subject matter experts, ready, accessible, handy, and that they've got buy-in, that this is something that they are also part of this AI journey to scale and to reap the benefits that it can provide. So I think it's something that, we can walk with you in this particular journey and make it easier for you. So that's my few points on AI adoption. Thanks, Ntako.
Thanks very much to the both of you. You have really made practical the journey that organizations have to travel to be able to enable and embark on the journey to have insights through the data, but also to be able to get to that point where they can take advantage of the value that can be unlocked in the organizations through AI. And to all those watching, there you have it. As you can see, Accenture is well equipped to be a partner for you in making sure that we unleash that power of data in your organizations by bringing out those insights, but also building those models that can help you transform your organization into the next level. At this point in time, I'd like to also request that you please scan the QR code on the screen to be able to access one of our maturity assessments that we have on offer. And as you select one of these, we'll then be in contact with you to assist you through the journey. This is where we end this discussion today, and I'd like to hand over back to you, Rapelang. Thank you.
From what Senthil and his team have shared, it's a very good thing that we're hosting Cloud Week. If the majority of senior executives are not on track to achieve their business objectives, then this, in my mind, is a clear imperative to drive the move to cloud. We're now going to take a 5-minute body break, and we will be right back. So grab that coffee. With each industrial revolution, mankind has been able to dramatically increase levels of productivity and value creation. Given our own local and the global economic slumps, it is evident that this rate or path of productivity is not sufficient to meet our growth needs. AI is key to scaling that. We have heard about how data and AI are converging, how companies like Accenture and other big corporates are investing heavily in the cloud, data, and AI, and how cloud is an enabler to scale AI across organizations. Let us now get some deep insights from those that have actually walked the journey. We have lined up 3 amazing examples of hyperscalers that have designed their own use cases to match their business priorities. First up is a client story on personalizing the retail experience, and this will be presented by Jean Biagio Curato of Intelligent Engineering Services and Mattia Pansarasa, lead data scientist, both from Accenture Italy. Such is the beauty of our world today that we can dial them in all the way from Italy. This will be followed by Sasol's data transformation journey, presented by Sasol's principal information and data architect, Bhavesh Telasara, as well as Francois Pina, Accenture Cloud First lead. Last in this lineup is a life sciences journey use case on data migration and business transformation. Tuning in from the UK is Andrew Sachrada, Life Sciences Consulting Senior Manager, and Rohit Mahita, Data and Analytics Lead and Solution Architect from the USA, both from Accenture. Jean Biagio, please kick us off.
Thank you, Rapalan. My name is Gian Biagio Curato. I work here in Accenture Google Business Group as the lead of advanced analytics offering. And I will explain you our customer data architecture asset. The asset is based on 3 main pillars. The power of data, models, machine learning models, and the unique customer view that is the output of the asset. Why we are speaking about power of data? Because data and also big data allow the creation of new insight that we can build in some way with machine learning capabilities that are available on cloud architecture computing capabilities. So the machine learning models are able to construct new insight and prediction regarding the customer behaviors that are not directly detectable with classical analytics tool like statistics tool, etc. So the main goal is to build data lakes where we can collect data from different sources and build new insight through machine learning capabilities. So the main purpose of the CDA asset is to stitch together all the customer profiles, and for each profile to put together different data that are usually siloed in different databases or in different sections of the company. Because, for example, as you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, for example, we can have different touch points, online and offline, and usually the data are put in different data sets. So the first thing is to put all together and to have a complete profile of the customer in order to allow the construction of big data lakes. And what is the architecture that allow the development of our asset is the Google Cloud Platform. And in this slide, you can observe the pipeline of the asset that starts from the collection of data through different services that can be pre-built or also through our partners. And then when the data coming from different sources is ingested inside the Google Cloud, we can aggregate, transform, and analyze it through different services. You can see on the bottom, for example, the artificial intelligence API. And at the end, when we have the predictions and the new insight, we can visualize them through different services like Google Data Studio and also Looker, that is now part of the Google Cloud Platform. And once we have also the business understanding of this visualization, we can activate new, for example, marketing campaign, leveraging this new knowledge that we build through the data and through the algorithms and services that are provided by the Google Cloud Platform. Thank you for your attention, and I leave to my colleague Mattia the next slide. Thank you.
And this use case is regarding a retail client where we developed a churn prediction pipeline. This retail client has more than 3.5 million profile customers and more than 100 millions of transactions per year. We developed a churn detection machine learning model, leveraging 2 years of historical data and outperforming the previous benchmark that were defined from a fixed rule on the behavior of the customers by 20%. Reaching a churn detection rate of 83%. Thanks to the deployment of this model in production, it was possible to add the probability of a customer that is going to be a churner in the next 3 months among with the other KPIs of the customer or the unique customer view. And so the marketers can target the customers in according to their probability to become a churner client. This has led to an increase in customer retention that also enable business value to move forward with the other activation steps of the customer data architecture. If you are interested in the customer data architecture, we can start the development of a proof of concept, leveraging some sources of the data, and then if the results are good, scaling it to production with the integration of many other databases.
Wow, there are organizations out there that are really leading the way. I am intrigued by the omni-channel comprehensive framework as a way to look at the customer through several lenses and to understand your current customer base and the typical journey through clustering and advanced dashboards. There is truly so much potential to leverage machine learning to predict the lifetime value of your customers and what's best in terms of the products to propose and actions to be taken to nurture that valuable relationship. Data management, collecting data, organizing it, and the basic analytics to process it was at the foundation of this use case. And this led to predicting customer behavior and using that to strategize better ways of marketing and engaging with customers to ultimately improve the customer experience. We'll move on shortly to our second case study. Francois, please unpack Sasol's journey for us.
Good day, everybody. My name is Francois Pino, and I'm the Cloud First AMBG lead at Accenture. Today, I'm very, very excited to bring you Bhavesh from Sasol, who's going to talk us through the story around how Sasol modernized their data organization. Just briefly, a bit of an intro. I think it's quite an interesting story. I was actually part of that first piece, Bhavesh, is in July 2019 when Accenture went through an assessment phase to kind of decide what the target state from a cloud perspective could be. It was quite nice for me to be part of that and to see how today it's kind of playing out to actually come into fruition. Just quickly around the run of flow of how things will work today, we're looking at a quick little background, which you're going to take us through how you guys changed the game plan and then the way forward, and then we'll end off with a bit of Q&A. But Bhavesh, over to you. Thank you very much for your time again.
Okay. Thank you, Francois, for this opportunity. Good day, everyone. My name is Bhavesh Talesara. I'm Principal Information and Data Architect for Sasol. Today, I'm going to share our journey or the stride towards data-driven organization. It's a very long journey, but I'm very pleased to share my experience with everyone here. Let me give you some context regarding this journey there. We embarked on creation of a data-driven organization in 2017, where we selected best of breed technologies and we selected to implement the vision of analytic ecosystem. We also came out with our guiding statement where we created the awareness about data. We told people that the new source of success is trusted, timely, and secure data. It is owned by our own people. It is there to deliver superior value to our stakeholders by making the best decisions there. We came out with a service delivery model where we came out with 4 services. One is value focused, proactiveness, accessibility, and empowerment. And we put all our energy and focus to deliver these services there. And behind that, to look at the data capabilities, that how can we deliver these services. We had the foundational data capabilities like infrastructure acquisition, and then we had the key other data capabilities which focused on extraction of value from data like analysis and insights, data science, data quality, etc. there. In the last 2 years, we created almost 1,400 data sets in this analytic ecosystem. But what happened? We faced major challenges related to this analytic ecosystem. We had cost issues, instability issues, lack of value issues there. Then we looked at getting help from Accenture, and then they came in terms of the analysis, and then based on our internal analysis as well, we looked at that, yes, licenses was getting expensive, infrastructure cost was increasing, instability was there because of complex technology stack there, because of the changed data capturing from our source systems, and also due to scarcity of skills. We had resources from the various areas, and it created inconsistent code development in the ecosystem there. And lastly, the most important thing we were having as a pain point is a lack of value. We didn't have enough data consumers coming. We were focusing more on data population rather than generating value out of these solutions there. And also the instability basically created lack of business confidence as well. So what we did is that we made decision to move from existing platform to a new Microsoft Azure data platform tools. And then you can say that there was a whole change in the approach as well there. So instead of populating data, we decided to go for delivering the outcome. So if you look at the picture there, that's the focus initially was more from left to right. We are trying to bring all the sources, putting into the data lake and putting into the data warehouse. But then now with this change in the game plan, we said that no, let's focus on the value or use case approach there. We start focusing on the outcome. And then we started in 2020 a project to modernize, simplify, optimize, and reorganize the data sets in analytic ecosystem platform. The key drivers were in terms of the cost. We looked at that. How can we simplify the architecture and design? That was a challenge for the team. How can we reduce the complexity of data pipelines? How can we look at from a patching, upgrades, challenges there? And then the other one is like looking at from a use case approach point of view. So these were the three key drivers. And based on this key drivers, we created a business case where we looked at, yes, by reducing complexity, we can reduce the data pipelines. By moving from an infrastructure as a service to platform as a service, we can reduce the complexity of upgrades and the patching there. And also we were looking at some kind of a data recon. Because of all these issues in the last 2 years, we lost the confidence of our data consumers from a data integrity point of view. So what we decided that we need to put something in place to do the data recon, either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, so business can have a confidence as well as a good data integrity of the reports that they have been producing or sharing with the executives or with the rest of the organization there. And as I said, from an approach point of view, the approach was more the use case approach rather than populating data there. Now, maybe to give you some insight that what's happening. So what's happening in the current environment, or what is happening currently and the way forward in terms of this whole analytic ecosystem there. If you look at the first thing we did, we created a data pipeline where we said that let's start building the data sets from analysis to up to the end of this whole data value chain, basically handing over to the production support. Because in a typical waterfall project, you first focus on analysis, then extraction, then DO development. We said that no, let's create end-to-end output instead of having a discrete kind of a output there. So once you analyze a DO, you do the same individual do the extraction, they do the development, they do the testing, and then they release into the production there, and then we hand it over to the production support team there. So this was and it took us some time to develop this data pipeline. It wasn't an easy thing. We had a lot of challenges in terms of streamlining the data pipeline, removing the bottlenecks and impediments. And this bottleneck was everywhere, and it exists in this whole system, and it's still there. So to be honest with you, it never disappears. So in terms of this approach, what we said that we will divide this, because we had ETL tools, we had data lake, we had data warehouse. We said that let's first focus on the ingestion layer. So as a phase one, we said that we will go and replace the ingestion layer, we will replace the existing data pipelines and build new data pipelines there. And in the phase two, we will look at replacing the existing data warehouse. And from a design point of view, also we need to relook at it because it was not an optimal design there. So as an outcome, means we started in September. What we have experienced in the last 9 months is that we have developed an efficient and effective data production pipeline. We have used DevOps and data ops principles there. We have done a faster release of DOs in production per sprint. We have reduced the number of ETL jobs to almost to 1/3. Means we were running thousands of jobs on a daily basis, and they have almost reduced to 1/3 of the jobs now. Data reconciliation process we have put in place by using certain tools and technology. So it helps us to do a faster development, and also creating that confidence during the UAT process, and the same logic and the same process will be applied in the production environment there. Also, we did some of the proof of value on our data warehouse. So this was some kind of a background work, or you can say pre-work before we start building start moving into the phase two of this project there. And then we also exploring some of the tools where we can look at the holistic view of data sets in the new data platform. Because today, if we have to connect and and look at the lineage from source to the target. We have to spend hours and hours, months and months to just get that lineage there. But with the new POCs and experiments we're doing, we will be able to see end-to-end lineage as well there. So at the end, I would like to say that yes, with the collaboration with the Accenture team, internal teams, we have been able to deliver this innovative and faster data pipelines to our data consumers with data integrity. Thank you, Francois. Thank you for that.
Oh, great story, Bhavesh, absolutely. And it was fascinating kind of living through some of that. Just quickly, if you may, for the techies out there, without giving too much away, maybe tell us a little bit about some of the actual Azure cloud components that you are currently using and have implemented.
So thank you, Francois. Thank you for asking that question. Yes, we completely, we decided, and because of our experience of having best of the breed technologies, but they're not talking to each other, we decided to go on this full suite of Microsoft tool sets there. So we're using Azure DevOps Board to track our work. The developers are using it for code repositories. They are linking it with their user stories. They are using this DevOps Board and the pipelines to release or deploy data sets into the production there. And not only this, we have even linked it with our Power BI reports there, where we can visualize and look at the capacity of the team, look at the hours available, look at the guys who have been loaded with more work rather than the individuals who are loaded with less work there. So it was not only about that whole data tool sets available, whether it's Azure Data Factory, whether it's related to SSIS, whether it's related to all the data pipelines. We also use a lot of visualization, wiki tools, and we have been using most of the features available in the existing Azure Data Platform, and we've been using that.
Fantastic. Yeah, look, I mean, it's great to see how you're moving towards that true modern engineering platform, because that's ultimately where you get the real value out of cloud. And then lastly, I think a bit of a challenging one, of course, and just maybe share with the audience today is, cloud spend. And ultimately, when we estimate these elements, how have you been tracking with your cloud spend in the data space and of course, the flexibility and scalability that you get? Just give us a little bit of insights into how that has worked out for you.
Yeah, so thank you, Francois, for asking that question. Francois, it was not an easy ride from a spend point of view. Yeah. Means cloud provides a lot of flexibility, elasticity, and scalability, but from a cost point of view, we saw a lot of surprises that suddenly means if you increase the computing and processing power there, the cost skyrockets. And to control that, what we have instituted is that like a weekly meetings we have got where we look at the Azure that spend dashboard, where we can see where we are spending more, where we're using more storage, where we're using less computing power. And we try to also at the same time cleaning some of the data sets there, because sometimes what happened when you have got something on-premise, you don't spend time in terms of the cleaning. But when you see that your barometer is going up and the cost is increasing, and then suddenly you see that no guys, you have to redo or you have to look at it. So that was a quite eye-opener for us to go through that, to have that kind of visibility on a daily basis. Another part was that we put some cost guardrails. We start putting some of the alerts where I generally get an email or alerts there that yes, we crossing our budget or we reaching 20%, 30%. So it was a quite it was not an easy thing, because we were not used to of managing the cloud platform cost in this manner. So yes, and it's continuing. So it's that something. It's just like you check your bank balance or you check your credit card statement. So so it was quite an good experience there.
Look, Bhavesh, I'm glad you got a handle on it. I mean, ultimately we do get this flexibility from the cloud providers, and we can understand if we use more, we need to pay more. But it's great to see that you have a handle on it. Bhavesh, thank you very, very much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. And again, thank you as well for the audience for tuning in today.
Thank you, Francois. Thank you for this opportunity.
To get to be a data-driven organization, one needs to modernize, simplify, and optimize. And Sasol successfully embarked on this data modernization journey. They figured out the data reconciliation process, put in place an efficient and effective data production pipeline by applying DevOps principles. They achieved line of sight with the value chains mapping directly to their customer needs. This journey resulted in modern and effective ways of work. Over and above that, they were able to achieve faster development and improved data quality. They reduced the number of ETL, extract, transfer, and load jobs to a third. They achieved a holistic view of their data assets on this new data platform. And they achieved a proof of value for the future data warehouse they will be building.
So hi, I'm Andy Sekhrider. I'm a senior manager within Accenture's life sciences practice based here in the UK. And now with over 17 years experience working with our life sciences clients in the commercial space, primarily on large-scale commercial transformations. And really over the last few years, my focus has been on how our clients can use data, analytics, and AI to really drive their commercial objectives. And over the last couple of years, my colleague Rohit and I, and Rohit will introduce himself shortly, have been working with one of our large life sciences clients on their journey to cloud. And we really welcome the opportunity today to talk to you a little bit about the core components of that transformation and the objectives our client had as they embarked on their journey to cloud. And I think as with all of our clients, or most of our clients who have seen success with their cloud transformations, and indeed in terms of how our own client was looking at this transformation, it was very much a business transformation. It wasn't an IT-led project or simply a way of closing legacy data centers. It was really trying to align the transformation to the corporate vision. And like with many life sciences clients, that vision is really all about how do you accelerate the delivery of innovative treatments, and how do you actually drive more personalized patient experiences that will really deliver better outcomes for patients? And that really was at the essence of the program. And I think we heard in previous presentations earlier today about how we unleash the power of data. And in fact, our client uses that very terminology when talking about this program internally. It's all about how we democratize the use of technology and data, how we actually empower users right across the enterprise to make better decisions based on better data and better insights, and really increasing the overall data and digital IQ across the organization. Also, when thinking about the use of data and actually how you drive personalization, there's a recognition that there's a need to integrate a lot more data sources that they currently have. And there's a much bigger focus now in the industry on being able to demonstrate outcomes and demonstrate impact of treatments, as well as the services that go with them on the broader health ecosystem. And again, a lot of that data will need to be combined with what they have internally, with what they can get externally, and real-world evidence data, and currently they just can't do that. So really it was within that context that they embarked upon this journey. And when they structured the program, and the way that we're supporting is really in 5 key areas in terms of their data and digital strategy. The first is obviously from a technology focus, and move into the AWS environment and actually modernizing the technical foundation. So there is an element of data center closure activity and moving out to about 14 data centers and closing those. There's a migration of applications element to it as well. They're migrating about 80% of their applications, but also consolidating and removing redundancies as they go, closing about 400 applications. And really looking at how they can drive down that cost expenditure while also setting the right foundations to build cloud-native digital services and products on AWS. The second part is really around the data foundations, and this is where Rohit and I are really kind of heavily involved. And it's really about how we set the right data, analytics, and AI capabilities, how we actually modernize the whole data governance process and the data management capabilities. How do we actually enable self-serve across the organization and empower users with different tools depending on the maturity and need to be able to exploit and use that data? And as part of that, how they can actually start building more internal capabilities. And we're doing this through looking at how to stand up a nearshore delivery center in Eastern Europe, as well as consolidating a lot of their vendors down just to a handful and start doing a lot more themselves. So once having the technology and the data in place, there's a big focus as well on how do we use that to drive innovation. And this is really kind of at the heart of the transformation. How do we actually start bringing across different functions together, enable much greater collaboration? And they're doing this through conducting innovation audits to identify the key problems that they need to solve, and how to bring people together to do that through an innovation engine and innovation processes to drive real change for the organization. And then finally, with this being a business transformation, there's a huge focus on the actual workforce transformation. What does the workplace of the future look like in this new world? So that this starts right at the top with empowering the leadership and setting the right tone and agenda for their teams. It's about adopting new mindsets and behaviours as they move to more agile and product-oriented ways of working. It's how they actually develop the people, provide them with the right learning opportunities to really kind of increase their digital and data IQ to be able to take advantage of this journey. And finally, for that piece as well, we're looking at how we actually collaborate across the ecosystem. So how do we actually have much more open platforms that allow the integration of different digital services to allow kind of much greater insight that we currently have. So those areas are really kind of how the program is structured and how they're kind of managing their journey to the cloud. I'll just touch on briefly on some of the key opportunities that we're looking to enable in the first domain that we're working with, which is in the commercial space, so on the sales and marketing side. So even through the first steps that we've taken in terms of the data that we're integrating for building, they're already accelerating lots of their omnichannel initiatives, already looking at new ways of creating value through innovative HCP services, being able to demonstrate treatment efficacy more quickly, as well as looking at how to transform some of their internal processes, for example, in terms of how they manage the regulatory process and submission of new drug applications, and how they can expand more in emerging markets where they previously haven't had data centers there. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Rohit, who will talk a little bit more about how we've actually helped them set up this enterprise data platform that will actually drive a lot of these opportunities forward.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Rohit Mehta. I'm a senior manager in our data and applied intelligence practice in Accenture, based out of North America, Boston, here in the US. And as my colleague Andrew mentioned, the client that we're talking about, my client, the focus from my client perspective was, how do we use data as an enabler and really keeping the patient at the core of their business? And with that, the idea was, how do I leverage technology as really an enabler to drive business? So keeping that focus in mind, the future state vision that my client had was really to build a common futuristic data and analytics platform that can solve all of their analytics and reporting needs. And with that in mind, the concept of having an enterprise data platform that can really set the backbone of being the foundation, and really keeping a product mindset in mind in terms of how do I build product that can enable applications for my end users. And with that focus, the way my client looked at it was basically keeping 6 products in mind, which are the data products, starting with the analytics marketplace, which is really around everything in terms of how do I capture, curate the data, and make it ready for consumption from a self-service perspective. The second product was around digital data backbone. That's really around how do I leverage real-time API-based integrations to get access to data faster and make it ready for consumption. The third product was around using machine learning and AI capabilities through advanced analytics tools so that I can have access to a lot of years of historical data for doing transactional analytical analysis. The fourth product was global integration platform, which is really around how do I use an integration platform like an ETL platform like Informatica to have batch-based integration, bring it into my analytics marketplace for driving insights. Enterprise Data Exchange was the fifth product, And the focus of that product was really having a common framework in place in terms of how we should look at, transferring the data from internal systems to third-party vendors. And then last but not the least is the product around master data management in terms of how do I have a singular view, a 360 view of healthcare professionals and healthcare organizations, as well as having governance around it so that when I'm looking at holistically from a data perspective, I have some governance and strategy around it overall, right? And with that in mind, the idea was really how do we leverage these 6 products in a way so that downstream, business groups like commercial can leverage one or more of these products and build out their applications that can then be leveraged for having, insights and access to about healthcare professionals, about our patients, and then how can my client really help the patients in their, disposition journey. So with that in mind, the whole idea was how do we keep the data at the heart of the patient care and really using the data as an enabler to solve for the patient needs. And the approach that we took is basically you have an entire data ecosystem of internal as well as external data sets, whether it's commercial, R&D, or patient programs, and vice versa. And then using an orchestrated data platform in terms of, gathering the data around claims, around the sales, around health records, around the social media, and really having the ability through the single cloud-based data platform to gather insights using this data that was really hard so far to get access to, right? Because again, cloud is really the enabler in the future in these days, ensuring that we are able to get access to that data pretty quickly. And the example use cases that we had from our side, mainly around the commercial business function, was really around how do we drive the sales force effectiveness, provide the management the reporting they need, and really around digital strategy and omni-channel perspectives as well. So from a data architecture perspective, really the focus was how do I map all the data products that have been built into this platform and really drive the functional architecture that is needed to drive insights for all of the business groups, including commercial and R&D. And what we did is basically, from an overall approach perspective, we looked at, we have access to all the internal data sources, whether it's, access to my employee data, the HR data, or the Viva CRM data, as well as the external data sources around sales and claims. How do we bring that in from a batch ingestion perspective using Informatica suite of products or leveraging more real-time integration using MuleSoft APIs? Bring that into my data lake, which is really an AWS S3-based data store, coupled with the power of Databricks to provide that relational connectivity, and really looking at how do I capture the data, curate it to make it more meaningful, and then make it ready for consumption with the help of my data marts for the end users. And then providing them a suite of business intelligence tools from an access perspective, including Power BI, ClickSense, Tableau, and some of the other tools. And then also for my data scientist community, how do we provide them a data science environment with the power of R and Python languages using Databricks, so they can drive insights that were really hard to gather earlier essentially. And as Andrew mentioned, the work that we have been doing over the past 18 months with these clients, we've already seen a lot of key focused outcomes that have been delivered, and this is just the start. And from an outcome perspective, what we have been able to deliver is really providing easier access to the data for all of my business community with the help of tools like DataMirror, Databricks, and Power BI, making sure that we make the discovery of the data easier so they can explore the data using this suite of products, as well as providing them central IT services if they want to ingest newer data sources and combine the data that we have already brought in. And then how do we make sure that my end users have a self-service capability using which they can publish their own report, right? They can build the reports using a suite of products that I talked about, and then publish it so that a larger business community can also make use of it, as well as providing them to access to a central IT factory services if they want help and support while building the dashboards and reports. And then how do we learn from it, right? As there are newer users coming in, We also built what we call self-service analytic playbooks. We created a suite of tools and trainings with the help of our organizational change management team. So the end users can have access to all of this great material, and they can learn on their own. And what we have seen is, with the help of all of this, we have now been able to bring this data, use this data platform as a single source of truth, provide them access to advanced analytical tools, as well as provide them consolidated analytics across the business units, which was not possible earlier. And using all of this, as of today, we are glad to report that more than 20 countries have already been enabled in this enterprise data platform. They're able to leverage, brand analytics, patient services teams, and a lot of commercial operations teams are able to use this platform. And at this point, we have more than 2,000 users who are leveraging this platform. And this is just the beginning. The key really is that this year focus has been around building this platform and enabling the users. But over a period of time, the focus really is how do we make sure that the end users are able to drive analytics using this platform, with the help of this newer platform. That's all from my side, guys. Thank you. Over to you.
The use of data as an enabler for digital capabilities is at the heart of this client's cloud ambition to deliver innovative treatments and drive personalized patient experiences. Data at scale will unlock those patient insights and drive collaboration to innovate integrated solutions that ultimately improve that patient experience. You have heard it all, folks. Some amazing journeys of Sasol's modernization, the changing personalization of customer experiences in retail, and ultimately how data and AI can be used in life sciences to improve health outcomes. We got to chat to so many people that gave us powerful insights on how we can use digital transformation to drive our own revenue, reduce costs, and enhance the employee and customer experience. To chat to an Accenture expert, do remember to scan your QR code, and you'll be able to get a further analysis on your business needs around your cloud and data journey. Thank you to all of you viewers for joining me today. We sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you to our clients, special guests, as well as all of the speakers that shared their insights. Thank you, Accenture, for this wonderful occasion. And let's make special mention of Vukani Mkati, Accenture CEO, Jigiyasa Singh, our Cloud First lead, as well as the broader Cloud First team. Remember to tune in tomorrow, same time, same place, for the secure and sustainable cloud theme, as we live in the digital world where cyber crimes and ransomware is on the increase. If you haven't registered for this session, please do log into the portal and make sure you're set for tomorrow. My name is Rapelang Ravana, and it's been a privilege to share this time with you. Stay healthy, stay safe, and goodbye.